Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. A couple of months ago I shared my top 5 routes in Mallorca, a video that's been really popular but admittedly stuck to the classic, well-trodden paths of Mallorcan cycling. This time round I'm swapping out the greatest hits for the hidden gems, with 5 routes that might not be as well known but are every bit as stunning. As with the last video, you'll find GPX files linked in the description below, along with a few variations based on your starting point and some optional extras for those who just got to be a little bit different. First up, and yes I know starting a list of 5 with a whole set of routes bends the rules a bit, but this is my list and I make the rules, so let me introduce to you the Monasteries Collection. Think of it as a build your own adventure spiritual summit safari, linking Mallorca's monasteries like beads on a rosary. Apologies for the florid prose, but again I make the rules here. Since we're just getting started, let's kick things off with one monastery and build up from there. About 30 kilometers east of Palma lies the town of Randa, home to the Cura Monastery. Perched high atop Puig de Randa, this mountain, much like others on the island standing apart from the main range, rises sharply from the surrounding flatlands. The monastery has been around in some form or other since the 14th century and remains a pilgrimage site to this day, though these days it's more lycra than liturgy, more saddle sores than sanctity. The Randa-only version of this route avoids the Tramontana entirely, heading south from Pollença along the flatter lanes that crisscross Mallorca's rural interior. You'll pass through pockets of countryside still rich with charm and largely untouched by the greasy mitts of mass tourism. You'll reach the base of the climb after about 60 kilometers, followed by a 5-kilometer ascent with 250 meters of elevation at an average gradient of 5.5%. At the top, you'll pass the otherworldly weather station before being rewarded with panoramic views across the entire island, on a clear day even as far as Ibiza. If you're into history, the monastery's worth a wander. If you're into cake, the cafe is top-notch. Once you've said your prayers, it's time to turn around. The descent has a few technical switchbacks as well as some faster sections too, and is overall pretty fun. Generally, as with all of the climbs outside of the Tramontana, traffic isn't too much of an issue either. The return leg of this route is fairly similar to the outward one, just as peaceful but with the added benefit of being largely downhill, so you'll be flying. If you're looking to boost your spiritual credentials further still, you can start stacking monasteries until your sins are forgiven. The simplest and arguably best addition is St Salvador, 30 kilometers east of Cura. It's one of the most underrated climbs on the entire island. Steeper than most at a relatively whopping 7%, so well worth a detour. Just know, and apologise for mixing my measurements here, you'll be pushing the ride towards 100 miles. For the full redemption arc, throw in Yuc to get into the Tramontana with the climbs and descents of the Formentor and Sabataya, and in your direction. Go one step further and head towards Mallorca's northeast corner for the Ermita de Betla, deep within the Serra de Avant. I cover that version in more detail in my 4 monasteries ride video, so check that out if you're keen. And if 4 still isn't enough, I've heard of people hitting as many as 8 monasteries in one ride, but as with most things in life, less is sometimes more. For those wanting to cross the island without tackling the relentless ups and downs of the M810, this alternative route from Port de Pollença to Palma is a great shout. I stumbled upon it when I was searching for a slightly less grueling ride back to Palma during day 3 of my bikepacking adventure with the cycling GK, Ben Foster, video link below. It surpassed all expectations, guiding me along lesser known back roads that hug the Tramontana range without ever getting too climby. The initial 30 kilometers to Cymru is the familiar pastoral postcard. Vineyards and dry stone walls roll by under the watchful gaze of distant peaks with pigs, sheep and donkeys quietly minding their business as you pass. Instead of heading up the Col de Sabataya, you'll continue south through Selva, Lloseta and onto Alaro, where you'll make the mandatory pit stop as Cycling Planet for coffee and cake. Before you get your caffeine fix though, you'll face the only real climb on the route, the Col de Toffler. It's not a monster, just under 2 kilometers long, but don't let the short length fool you. With an average gradient over 6% and ramps nearing 13, this quiet, traffic-free climb certainly packs a punch. Once you've conquered Toffler and waved goodbye to Alaro, it's more rolling terrain through olive groves and sleepy villages, with the looming peaks of Puig de Alaro and the Puig de Salcadina an impressive backdrop. Eventually, you'll reach Santa Maria del Camí, where you'll begin the final stretch towards Palma. The roads do get busier here, but you'll still have a decent hard shoulder, so no need to stress. And thanks to the slight downhill gradient, you'll cover this 20 km stretch at a fearsome gallop. When you hit Palma, the city streets are busy, but with bike lanes continuing throughout, it's still pretty tame for city riding. If you want a bit more of a challenge, you could reverse the route, ride back, or if you're after more climbing, add the beautiful Orient Valley north of Alaro. This will take you over the Col d'Orna and the Col d'Orient towards Bunyola, adding about 15 extra kilometres and 500 metres of climbing. Since this is a point-to-point route, you'll need return transport. The train at Palma can get you as far as Sa Calobra, or you could take the Mallorca Cycle Shuttle, linked below, to Andratx and start the route there. I've included a GPX file of this alternative route, which will add in a couple of extra minor climbs, the peaceful Col de Tordes and Col de Nesteve, via the charming almond groves around Calvia. Next up, we have a wonderfully peaceful and beautiful loop that includes 2 underrated climbs in the north of the island. Never too far from Port de Poyensa, but still clocking in at around 85 kilometres, the La Victoria and Santa Magdalena loop. First up, you'll begin your day riding one of the most picturesque bike lanes you're ever likely to find, rolling out of Port de Poyensa towards Alcudia along the Bay of Palencia. Incredible at sunrise and even better with a tailwind. For today's ride, we'll turn our backs on the wonderful yet often ruinously busy Formentor Peninsula and head towards its sister across the water, La Victoria. While Alcudia's answer to bayside climbing does lack some of the punch of Formentor, it is still worth the trip and the views are spectacular in their own right. After an initial suburban stroll through the hilly Malpas de Bonaire, you'll descend towards the disarmingly blue sea. Hold your nerve with a quick hop over a cattle grid, where a faster approach will be more comfortable, and then climb up towards the Ermita de la Victoria. In comparison to many other Mallorcan climbs, this one is pretty tasty, with an average gradient of 7% and ramps of around 12. Don't let this put you off though, as at only 2 kilometres in length, it will all be over too soon. The road diverges about halfway up, but when I've been here there have been fairly unambiguous signs of no entry to what I understand is a military area. However, Strava heat maps do seem to show that people do venture down there, so do so at your own risk, and please let me know in the comments if this is a viable trip. Once at the top, you'll have options to check out the church or turn around. There are also plenty of hiking and mountain bike trails, so something to consider for another day. Take care on the descent. The usual goat, rock, car trifecta is always a lurking danger, and since the road is quite narrow, it could be easy to get caught out. Once that is ticked off, you'll wave goodbye to the sea and head inland. After rolling through the port of Alcudia, you'll pass briefly through the Albufeira wetlands, around Sa Calobra, and then onwards through rural back roads towards Santa Magdalena. You will forgive me for including another 2 monastery route as its own entry, and you'll be grateful as you do it, remembering to leave a nice comment and subscribing to the channel while you're at it. The Santa Magdalena Monastery can be found a little way outside Inca and is a climb to watch out for as you make your journey from the airport towards the north of the island. Clearly visible from the motorway, a solitary lump in the flatlands gazing across the road to the bigger boys of the western coast. The climb is another relatively short and sharp number, slightly longer than La Victoria at nearly 3 kilometres, but ever so slightly shallower at 6.4%. The road is spectacularly peaceful with little traffic even in the busier months. The road wraps its way around the perimeter of the mountain like a helter-skelter, rewarding you with views to every corner of the island, down to Inca, and then finally, the best of them all, out across to the Tramontana. This is probably the best view of the range you'll get anywhere on the island. Closer than the likes of Cura, you'll have a front row seat in the Royal Circle. Whether you choose to head towards them is up to you, but it's definitely worth considering if you fancy a longer day out. I combined this with the garage loop, and it was a truly brilliant morning. For this route though, you'll make the relatively technical descent down and head towards Campinet before heading back along the familiar roads towards Poyensa and back home. This route makes for a great rest day ride. For the most part it's flat, giving you a day to recover from your loftier rides, but still providing a couple of short climbs to keep you sharp. Next up on this list, barring an 8 monastery slog, is our daftest and most demanding route, the hardest 100. I plotted this ride at the end of last year, attempting to find the hardest 100-mile route on the entire island, and I'm pretty sure I found it. Quick disclaimer before we dive in, after editing the hardest 100 video, I somehow contrived to delete all the raw footage, so there's no original film of Port de Valdemossa or Port des Canonges, just some pixelated downloads salvaged from YouTube. I've let myself down, I've let my viewers down, and I've let the whole school down. Anyway, this is another point-to-point route that will take you from just outside Palma back to Port de Poyensa. You can quite easily do this one from Andratx too, shout out once again to the Mallorca Cycle Shuttle, affiliate link in the description below, but it will add on an extra 10 kilometres, taking you over that magical 100 mile. You will start this ride at the base of the Col de Sacru, a pretty tame warm-up at 6 km and 5.5%, but you'll appreciate it with what's ahead. After a short coast downhill towards Puigpunyent, you'll begin the toughest climb of the day, and the trickiest on the whole island, Sobraman. This absolute basket case of a climb bucks convention, eschewing the usual steady gradients typical of Mallorca, and instead climbs skyward at heinous gradients of 15, 20 and even 25% and above, for stretches that will have all but the sprightliest mountain goats zigzagging their way up, or even walking. The gradient isn't all you have to worry about either. With a road surface resembling something akin to downtown Aleppo, you'll be swerving potholes and gravel patches right to the very top. Your next port of call is the Port de Scanonge, a real hidden gem, and while not nearly as savage as Sobraman, is still a force to be reckoned with. Other than perhaps Col de Soya, the switchbacks of this ascent are some of the most impressive on the island, stacked one on top of the other in a fashion that borders on comical. Your onward journey takes you up the Col d'en Claret, a comparative walk in the park and the easiest climb of the day. Once you've descended down the other side, it's the Port de Valdemossa, another hidden gem to earn you bragging rights as a hill climb hipster among your Route 1 peers. Often compared to Sa Calobra, and much like Canonge, this climb takes you from the heights of the MA10's balcony road down to sea level and back up again, via a narrow road of steep switchbacks that cling to the rocky cliff face. The next 20 kilometers is a comparative breeze as you descend first into Daya and then down to Soya for your most prolonged stretch of climbing of the day, taking on the big pig himself, Puigpunyent. You should all be familiar with this porker, with the 14 kilometers 850 meter climb, the island's largest. You'll probably be feeling pretty knackered by this point, so the circa 1 hour steady ascent will be where the mind games really start to take hold. Once you finish though, you'll be well over 3,000 meters climbed, and it's just a small matter of Sa Calobra left to tackle. It's unlikely you'll be setting any PBs today as you make your way back up from this dead-ended beauty, and just a word of caution to take extra care on the descent, especially since you'll be probably somewhat compromised both mentally and physically at this point. The final stretch to Port de Poyensa is now largely downhill, so you can begin to congratulate yourself on a hard-fought and uniquely impressive day out. If you do take on this ride, please let me know in the comments, as I'd love to hear how you got on. For my own effort, check out the Hardest 100 video linked in the description below. Before we move on to the final route of the video, just a quick thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this, please like, comment and subscribe. The order is entirely up to you. Either way, it helps top up my sense of self-worth, which, as we all know, is a finite and fragile resource. If you're heading to Mallorca and need to rent a bike, check out Bike Island Mallorca and use the code SAM5 for a cheeky little discount. For those who'd rather skip the logistics and enjoy a bit of luxury, visit Medfield via the affiliate link in my bio. They'll sort you out with a bespoke cycling trip, and who knows, I might even show up as your guide. And if you're tackling the point-to-point MA10 route or just want help getting around, take a look at Mallorca Cycle Shuttle, affiliate link below as always. Thanks for listening. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. For our final route of this video, we will sack off the climbs entirely. For a 90km round trip that still packs around 600 meters of elevation, you're never going to get a completely flat route after all. The ride starts with your classic route out of town and over towards Campanet. You've heard me wax lyrical about these rural tracks about 30 times at this point, so I'll not torture you with the same poetic rehash any further. So, speeding ahead just a little bit, we'll breeze through Caimari, Selva and Inca on our way over towards the pleasingly named Sineu. When I completed this ride the first time round, our route this way was on quite a busy road, but since I'm such a stand-up guy, I've replotted this on what I hope should be something a little more sedate. Once you've arrived in Sineu, you'll head over to the starting line at the public velodrome. Unless you're particularly unlucky, it's probable you'll have this cyclist playground all to yourself. This is definitely a ride you'll want to do with chums, as solo laps don't quite hit the same way as an impromptu team pursuit. You're free to muck about here as long as you please, but once you've determined the loser within your group, you'll want to find somewhere for them to treat you to coffee and cake. The attached leisure centre cafe will do the trick, but the much trendier cycling cafe Sa Molla would be my pick. From there you'll ride fast roads onwards towards Santa Margalida, with Mallorca's other range, the Serra de Llevant, silhouetted in blue above bright green fields. You'll not make it quite that far today, and will instead head back to the coast, where you'll ride alongside the Albufera wetlands through Alcudia and then back along the bay. A quick look down at your bike computer and you'll be impressed to see an average speed far beyond your typical Mallorcan crawl, because not every ride has to be difficult. So there we have it. I hope you found this video useful. There's an absolute boatload of GPX files linked below, so please don't message me asking for them. I've done the hard work, and by now I'm on to bigger and better things. If you do need to tweak the routes, just duplicate them within Strava, move around starting point, and Bob's your uncle. If you do get stuck, I've also linked a video by another creator below that explains how to do it. Okay, bye!